Yes. Dear participants, welcome for day 4 AICTE sponsored ATAL FDP on advanced computing paradigms, bridging AI, high performance computing and data driven technologies. Day 4 session 1. And a warm good evening to everyone present over here. So today's session will be delivered by Mr. Girish Lolakantaya. It gives me an immense pleasure to introduce Mr. Girish, an accomplished industry leader with an over 25 years of rich experience in the field of information technology. He is currently serving as the director of Taito Every, a globally renowned organization known for its excellence in digital services and software solutions. Throughout his remarkable career, Mr. Girish has played a key role in leading transformation technology initiatives and driving innovation across multiple domains. His expertise spans areas such as enterprise software development, cloud computing, data engineering, and digital transformation strategies. At Toyota Mr. Girish has been instrumental in shaping the organization technological vision and leading teams towards achieving large-scale success throughout strategic thinking and innovation. His leadership reflects a perfect balance of technical excellence and human values, empowering people, fostering collaboration, and inspiring growth. Beyond his corporate accomplishments, Mr. Girish is also deeply passionate about mentoring your young professionals and guiding the next generation of technologists and leaders. His vision, dedication, and vast industry insights continue to inspire many to push boundaries and embrace innovation with confidence. We are truly privileged to have Mr. Girish Lolakantaya with us today. His presence and thoughts will surely enlighten and motivate us to strive for excellence in our professional and academic pursuits. Thank you, sir. We are very much pleased to have you today. I'm handovering the session to today's resource person, Mr. Girish Lolakantaya. Sir.
Thank you, Anita, for your kind words and then the introduction. So we'll get started. So I'll share my screen, just confirm
Yes.
if it's visible. Yeah, is it visible?
Yes, sir, it's visible.
All right. All right. Thank you. I'm also equally excited to be here presenting GenAI in action. I'll be running through what we do with GenAI in delivering GenAI as a technology into business context and also the IT services. So in the first session, we'll cover business context, and then in the second session, we'll try to cover the IT services. All right. So, and please drop in any questions that you have or interject and then ask questions if there is any clarification needed. We'll try to keep it interactive. And this kind of a model is very familiar to me. In current organization, I'm driving something called Train the Trainer program. So what we do is any new technology that comes in, we understand that technology, its business implications, and then we train the trainers like the senior business analysts, senior architects, or senior developers. We'll train them on that particular technology, and then they will build on top of it, and then they train the other people in the organization so that it can be implemented across different deliveries that we are doing. All right, so this is the agenda as briefly explained. Introduction, it's already done by Anita about me, and then GenAI. So we'll try to understand what is GenAI, what is the engine that powers the GenAI, and what are the use cases of GenAI. And then we'll talk about GenAI in business, the key considerations before taking GenAI into any business applications or businesses, and then we'll talk about certain case studies that we have implemented. We'll we'll also talk about the industry implementations which you may be familiar with, and then also we'll talk about some of the case studies where I was involved in. And then in the second session, we'll talk about GenAI in IT services. So you might have been hearing the news that Microsoft has reduced 10% of their workforce, SAP reduced 5%, TCS has reduced many people. So we'll touch upon what is really happening in the IT services in terms of AI adoption or generative AI adoption, how it is improving the productivity, and also how it is how we are able to deliver the 100% delivery that we were able to deliver with about 80% capacity. So we'll talk on those aspects. Okay. All right. This is me. Anita has given a introduction, so I'll not delve deeper here. So how GenAI and LLM works, right? So this is the overall view of GenAI. So GenAI comes under the big umbrella of AI. So when we talk about AI is been in the industry for about 75 years. During about 1950, it has started. So it started with a basic rule-based systems where machine act or like an intelligent human being, right? So the rule-based systems, robotics, speech recognitions were the kind of core features of the AI when we started off with, and then it is progressed. And then came the machine learning. Machine learning is branch of AI where it allows system to learn from data. So it goes through the process of feature extraction, classification, and then identifying the patterns. And then based on the pattern, it predicts data. For example, we in the previous session, we were talking about spam detection, right? So there are many emails that are coming in, and then it identifies certain patterns and then identifies certain emails as spams. And also some scoring like credit scoring, for example, based on the pattern of your spending, pattern of how you repay your loans, your credit scoring is done. So these are the ML use cases. And then came the the deep learning. And then deep learning is about using the neural network with many layers. So it is the neural network provides multiple layers of how do you store data and then reference data. So typically it is used for complex data representation, process unstructured data. It could be image, videos. Uh, Mainly it started off with understanding the images, image recognition, speech to text, object detection. So these were the deep learning aspects. And then the GenAI is actually the subset of deep learning, which focuses on using that deep learning to create content. The content could be text, images, audio, code, video. So it generates the new data like what it has learned from the training data. So it is able to learn from the training data and able to generate it. And it is mainly powered by the LLMs. We call it as large language models. It may not be large in all the cases. It is basically the language models. We have many small and then the large language models. Large language models are more powerful. And then diffusion models are used for image recognition and then the video creations. So this is about GenAI. I'll quickly run through how GenAI or LLM works, right? So you might have seen that whenever you use ChatGPT or any of the GPT tools, you provide input, right? Those are all called prompts. So prompts, whatever text that you give gets converted into tokens. Similarly, like when you are training an LLM, the text that you give, it is converted into tokens. For example, if the LLM is trying to extract data from a Wikipedia page about Kalpataru College, for example, it extracts all the data and then converts that into tokens. So this is how it generates tokens. So it is not word by word. It actually splits that based on certain logics. So for example, if you are if you have tenses in the particular word. For example, walking. If you take walking, it will take walk as one token and then ing as another token. So that is how the tokenization works. And this is very important to understand the tokenization aspects when we are building applications for businesses, because all the LLMs, the commercial LLMs that are available will charge they charge anybody by usage of tokens, like what are the input tokens that you give, and then what is the output tokens that it gives. So I'll just quickly show how you can also check. So there is a OpenAI platforms tool called Tokenizer. Here you can type in any text that you want. For example, I'll take this text itself and then type in here, then it will show how many tokens it got generated. So if you see, it has taken open as one token, yeah as one token, large language model. So this is how the it understands different tokens. So each token is taken into consideration when enhancing that large language model. And then the pricing that I was talking about, like if you take OpenAI platform, any platform charges based on the tokens. You might have seen if you are using it, using the free version for a longer time, we used to get your token as expired, token limit as expired, but now they've changed that particular message. But this is basically it. So they'll have a limit on any free version. So that token is what it does. So if you are using GPT-5, they'll charge $1.5 per million token. So million token input, and then for output they charge $10. And then there is a cached input. Mainly this is to store some context. So if you are continuously chatting, then it will store some context. So, and that context is also stored as token. So that is where they charge this. So this is about tokenizations. Once the tokenization is done, uh, see what happens is computer can only understand uh, digits, right? So it cannot understand the word. So there is a technique called embedding. So embedding is basically each token is converted into a vector. Vector is a multi-dimensional vector. So it is not just two-dimensional, multi-dimensional vector it will use. And then the LLM models are actually defined based on the dimensions that they support. The large language model, for example, GPT-5 supports up to 16,000 dimensions, whereas the smaller models, the mini models, support 68. So the standard is about 368 dimensional model where we can achieve significant results. So basically what it does is it converts, for example, here, Apple is converted into a token, and then token is stored in a dimensional array. So this is how it is, like each uh, token is converted into this numbers and it is stored, right? And then what happens is, like whenever the machine is learning or the LLM is learning, it keeps storing this data, and then they use the logic called transformer logic. So this is the core of LLM, where it learns from the data that is being provided, which relates, it is called self-attestation. So self-attestation is basically creating a context. Say, for example, you have banana and then the apple. It will relate banana and apple to a fruit category, for example, right? And then, and also here, there is a left word. So left may be coming from one sentence where it says left in the room, and then it attaches a context as departure. Whereas the left in the take a left kind of a sentence, it attaches to a context of direction. So this is a at a high level, I'm explaining this, but there is a more complex implementation that happens in between. So, but this is the core logic. Though, so once you have the tokenization and then convert that token into a vector, and then transformer logic will do this attestation. So it puts together all the content into one particular area. So this will, what it will help is when you are doing the next operations or fetching the data, it knows the context, it knows the related words, and then based on that it will take. So the dimensions that I was talking about, the 16,000 dimensions that GPT-5 supports, is basically for each token there is a context of up to about 16,000 if you look at it that way, right? So the GPT-5 is super powerful mainly because it can store a lot of context. And then that context is stored, and then the LLM processes it, puts it together. Say, for example, if you are looking for an article from Dr. X, for example, and Dr. X is linked to all the tokens that is generated from his article, so that if you are searching for Dr. X on a particular subject area, and that subject area is grouped again together, and then it will try to fetch that particular content. So when you are using any chat GPT or any tools, right, the LLM tools, the context is super important, mainly because of these reasons. You give more context, it can fetch more precise information for you. So just to uh, uh, yeah, we'll take examples later, but this is how it works. So you set a for example, any master prompt that you create a role for yourself. So as a business analyst, I'm trying to do this, or I'm a director of technology in particular company, and I am trying to establish a particular competency, and this is what I am looking for. So you, whenever you create a prompt, you assign a role for yourself that will narrow down your search, and then you explain the task it has to do, right? So and then give the task, and then give some examples or give some references. So that is how it is able to pinpoint a particular topic and give you a more appropriate answer. All right. So hope I'm making sense. If not, please drop a message. I can go deeper. And then the final part is the prediction, right? So model looks at the context, predicts probable next token, right? So for this is an example. So if I say yeah is, then it either predicts amazing, powerful, transformative based on the context that you have given. So you are looking for some amazing things, or you have created certain context where you are looking for a powerful message. So then it will take powerful as one of the word, or amazing based on the context that you set. And then it repeats until the sentence is complete, right? So this is how it works. And then this is not just one time activity, this is the repeated activity, right? So the tokenization, embedding, transformer, and then prediction are repeated activity. These models are trained again and again on the data that it receives. Even some of the models will take the input that you provide as a data, the output that it gives as a data, and then predicts. So basically it has got many tokens which will help you to uh, do the prediction properly. So I'll just run through one more screen. So there are many LLM models in the like in the industry. There are about 500 plus models. So if you look at this, this is one openrouter.ai. So there are about 540 models in the industry, including commercial and then the open source models. And then there are rankings based on their usage. So if you look at it, this are ranked based on the tokens that they have. So it has got 1.21 trillion tokens. So this is how it is ranked in terms of the tokens. So Grok, or Elon Musk's Grok, is the highest here, and then the Claude Sonnet, and then Gemini. So and then there is a GPT, right? So this is one source where you can look at all the models that are available, and then there are uh, you can look at the market share in terms of who is leading from the market share, and then the categories in terms of different types of models, right? So for example, if you're doing a particular business, say for example, banking, there are specific models, LLM models, which are trained on banking data only. Though they have the capability of general English, but they are trained more on the finance data, right? So similarly, like if you're looking for legal, there are different models, and then these are the legal models. Anubis is one of the top model. So this is how, like when you are looking for a business problem or trying to solve a particular problem in a particular domain area, you look for which model to use. And some are open source, some are commercial. Based on that, based on the financial constraints, you can choose what you want to do and then what you want to achieve. So these are finance models, and then health related. So health related, GLM is another one. So see, basically what happens is each industry have their own compliances and then their own articles, their own kind of uh, industry standards or uh, defined models. So based on that, that data will be trained on these models. So it can give related messages, and also it will not get confused with other data. So for example, if you mix health and finance, uh, and then probably technology into one model and then try to use it for health, it may take some references when your prompts are not complete, then it can take some references from finance, take some references from technology, and try to give the answer, which may not be related to health, right? So that is where, when you're building a business solutions, choosing a right model is super important. And then this kind of tools can help. And then there is another online tool called Hugging Face. So this is for the open source model. So, and then this is very much used in terms of trying out different LLM models. And then this Hugging Face also provides you ability to test those models. So you can provide inputs. For example, I take this model and then I can test those models also. This particular model does not give that opportunity, but there are open source models where you can input data and see how it is taking it, and then how it is uh, answering your particular business problem or so, right? Based on this, you can take different models and then you can look at different models that are available. If you want to do text generation, you can choose text generation specific data models. You want to do image to image, then there are different open source models that are available. And then, so here, this is what I was talking about. It provides an interface where you can test your model, right? So you can uh, upload certain images, see uh, how it is taking image and then the prompt and generating the output. Based on that, you can decide whether this is the right model for you or not. Based on that, you can incorporate into your applications. So this is one model that we are using for one of our applications, where it is like we don't wanted to use general public available uh, GPT or any other models, because the need was very less. Like we were supposed to train 1 million of records. So we thought this is the right model, and this provides only 368 vector dimensional vectors. So this is sufficient for our need. All right. So and then I just will touch upon this also, and I'll share these links after the call so that you are aware. So this is one good resource where you can learn about prompting. How do you prompt it? There are different techniques in prompting. Zero shot prompting, where you don't give any input. Few shot prompting is about where you give multiple examples. Chain of thought is kind of you ask it to ask the GPT to think on behalf of you and then provide the answers. So there are different prompting techniques, and this is a good resource where you can learn about prompting and then you can improve on your prompting. So just to give you one example, I'll run through one small example here about prompting itself. I'm using Microsoft 365 Copilot, which I have the license to. So the common thing that you usually do is uh, so in the college, right? So students come late to late to the class, right? So uh, think of it like how we think, right? So when I'm late to the class, I have to give some reason, and I cannot give a lame reason. I can, and then I need to understand the context, like whether I am 2 minutes late, 5 minutes late, 10 minutes late. Based on that, my reasoning should be stronger. Or I need to know who I'm asking for excuse, right? Like whether they are strict or they are lenient, they will allow you. And then how do the lecturer recognize you? These are some of the context. So I'll just try to give a simple example here. And then, so this is the general answer that you get, because I have not given any uh, context here. So, and then what I'll do is I'll expand this where I'm recognizing myself or giving a role. For example, here I'm telling that I'm a second year student. The lecturer knows that I live in a hostel. I cannot give a traffic as a reason. And then the lecturer is very strict. And then also some context about the lecturer in terms of he loves cat or he lives with cat. And then I'm not regularly late to the student provide. And also I'm telling the chat GPT or the copilot to provide 5 different excuses and then analyze those 5 different excuses and then give me the top one. So I'm just giving you some hints in terms of how can you give prompts so that you can get better results. So it gave me 5 different tools and then it tries to analyze those 5 excuses. Right. So this is, so whether this is something that you accept or not, but this is what it does. So more context you give, the more better the results are. And then those results are driven through the concept of uh, this transformer technology and then the embedding and things like that. Right. All right. Any questions so far? All right. No questions. So we'll continue, right? So, and then see, and then we'll on the considerations while using GenAI in business. So these are the GenAI capabilities, right? So in terms of what GenAI can do. So we'll go deeper in terms of the business cases, but these are the capabilities. Language and text generation is one of the core capabilities where it is used. It can draft documents, reports, communication, uh, and then when you talk about drafting a documentation, so like for example, I use Copilot here. So describe like what I want to do, right? So for example, I take this as an input and then give it, it reads through the PPT and then generates a document for me, right? So this is the power of generative AI in terms of, and then you can give prompt, you can change prompt, and then you can give instructions. It can generate document for use. Here, what it is doing is it is analyzing a PPT, which is stored in my SharePoint, and then creating a document for me, right? So, and then you can generate emails. So if you want to respond to a particular email or create a new email content, you can generate, and then it can generate reports based on certain certain aspects. And then the knowledge extraction and insight. This is another aspect where generative AI is mostly used. So for example, I am sitting on large amount of data in terms of the training data. For example, I have a product or an engineering process where I have created many manuals, and then uh, I want to create summarization of that particular data. So the extraction of the data, it could be in different format. It could be in audio format, video format, the PDFs, some instructions, and some maybe plain text, some organized, some not organized. So all those data can be extracted, and then you can generate summarization. And then market analysis and another thing, like you might have seen many people are using generative AI or chat GPT for their market prediction or to take decision on investment, right? So these are some of the, it is all driven by data. So it takes data and then analyzes it and provides you inputs. And then compliance. So compliance is another aspect where it is tons of documents. Like if you want to implement some safety or a lift in a apartment or in a building, you have to comply to certain standards. And then these are some big documents. So it can extract data from that and then answer questions like, I'm putting lift at this particular location. Is it suitable? Does it comply with the local rules and things like that? So this is something. And then root cause analysis, trend analysis are the common use cases where uh, like you have many tickets that have come in for a particular product or a particular service that you are providing to your customers. And then based on the it can analyze tickets and find out what is the root cause. Is it problem with the product that you are supplying? Is it the common problem across different users, or only few people are facing a particular issue, or is there a usage kind of an issue where we need to give better instructions to customers? So these are some of the insights that companies are extracting from these data points. Data analytics enhancement. So chat with data is another aspect where we have implemented certain uh, uh, implementations for our customers where we were providing business intelligence reports, right? So based on their activities, so we were giving static reports. But if you want to get a particular data, they have to click through multiple stages or apply filters to get to a particular data. So what we have done is we have created a chat interface on top of that particular data point, and which is enabled with LLM, ChatGPT, and also it has got RAG implementation where it can look at the data and then give more insight. So I can chat with the chat that I'm seeing on the screen. And then automation and productivity, meeting summarization. So you might have experienced this if you are using Teams, then it provides you an opportunity to record the meeting with AI insight. So after the meeting, it generates summaries, action items. It understands different persons who are talking, and then based on that, it generates kind of what were the talking points for each person, and then what are the action points, and who is responsible for those action points also, right? And then creative and then design capabilities. This is mostly on the visual part of it, where people are using visual capabilities to create branding images or images of their products, and then product at different settings, right? So for example, you take a shoe, shoe is just an image, but you can place it in different places, and then you can give prompts in such a way that it is placed on cloud, for example. It is placed on a particular football field, highlighting that particular shoe. So these are some of the things that industry or the companies are doing in terms of creative design capabilities. And then decision support and co-pilots. So co-pilot for HR. So these are some of the co-pilots that are being created for specific needs. For example, finance, operations, which internally talks to their internal systems. It could be ERP, HR, HRMS, or CRM, where it can link to these particular data and then get help, right? For example, if you are looking for a particular policy, leave policy, uh, and then you want to find out how many leaves you have left with. So you don't have to go to portal and see all those data. Instead, you can use co-pilots or chat interfaces to ask those questions. It will internally talk to your ERP. It will look at the leave policies in the policy document and then give results, right? So that is one thing. And then the knowledge democratization is another important aspect where we have every organization is sitting on a large pile of knowledge base. It could be historical, like if the product is there in the industry for about 5 years or 10 years, it has usually has evolved over the years. And during the evolution, the more documents are created, more data points are created. So all these, and then there is a people churn, right? So people leave the organization, new people come in, and then to get productive, they usually take 3 to 6 months in terms of learning how things work, learning how to use different systems. So these kind of like ChatGPT or the generative AI solutions are providing a quick turnaround or quick uh, way to proficiency, right? So that is one of the important aspect where everybody is trying to exercise. So if I onboard a new resource, if somebody is taking 6 months, and if they are able to make them productive within 1 month or 2 months, they are ready to invest whatever is required to build that particular solution using GenAI. So this is some of the capabilities of GenAI. So while we talk about capabilities, we also need to understand its limitations, right? So it is not, it's a super technology, right? So it is changing the dynamics of how business runs, how IT services work, how everybody day-to-day life works, but it has got its own limitations, right? So accuracy and hallucination is another aspect. So it makes up information, right? So based on we talked about context setting or writing the right prompt. If you are not creating a right prompt, or if you have created the right prompt also, it all depends on what is the data that it is trained on. Based on the trained data, it hallucinates. So it makes up information because LLMs are designed to provide you answers, right? It cannot say, I don't know, right? So instead of I don't know, it makes up certain aspects based on the hallucination, right? So I'll just give one example which I recently encountered. So what I did is there was about yeah, this is the one. So what I did is I was collecting data in terms of the capabilities across our global delivery, and then on a particular capability, and then it had about 60 or 70 capabilities that are defined. But I know that those can be classified into less than 10. So what I did is I gave that data to Copilot and then asked it to generate. Uh, so this is the data that I provided. So this is the data, and I asked it to categorize that into 10 different main categories. So what it did is it uh, did the 10. So it confidently said, I simplified this version and then I categorized that into this formats. But when I looked at it, the total did not match. The total was around 240 here, and then here it was about uh, 170, or that is the kind of number. Like some numbers were missing. So then I said, explain how you consolidated the second column. Then it gave the logic in terms of what is considered under SAP services, what is considered under application services. So, and then it gave the total also. But then I found out something is missing. I told consolidation number is wrong. Add counts in column 2 based on simplified category. So then it corrected itself and then added another category called others. So the 98 capability count were missing in the initial data that it gave, right? So, and then it gave others category in terms of what are those other contains. So this is one good example which I recently experienced. I just wanted to share that with you so that you know the context. So how to address this? The main mitigation is human in the loop. So whatever GenAI or the LLM provides, we need to validate that. So just a time check. Okay, on time. So, and then retrieval augmented generation RAG is another aspect where you can specifically ask certain data sources, right? So instead of getting the general information, we can use RAG, which looks at specific information. So for example, if you are looking for a HR policy, so you can develop RAG, which connects to your HR system or the SharePoint location where HR policies are stored, and then provide you that particular data. So you can build your LLM or generative AI solutions in such a way that these questions must be answered from a data that is available within our my network. And then confidence scoring is another aspect where whenever we are developing a Gen AI solution, we generate something called confidence score. So confidence score determines what is the near match, right? So we talked about vector embedding and all. So in that you'll see certain words clubbed together, right? So if it is clubbed together, if it has got a strong relationship, then it will give confidence score of about 100% or 90% or 95%. If it has pulled data from different groups and then created you a generic content or outputted a generic content, then the confidence score is usually low. So when we build generative AI solutions, we'll have a filter in terms of the confidence scoring. So whenever it gives back the data, we get the confidence scoring also. Based on the confidence scoring, we'll decide whether to show that result to customers or not. Right. So these are some of the things that we are doing when we are actually building applications for businesses. And then data privacy and security is another big aspect where, say, for example, we had situations where our developers were pasting customer code onto ChatGPT, for example. And ChatGPT was taking that data as an input, creating tokens, and then putting it into their LLMs, right? So, and which breaches our confidentiality agreement with our customers. So this is something that we try to avoid, and then we provided enterprise grade uh, licenses to all our developers. Now they use enterprise licenses, which are bound to some conditions in terms of not using whatever input that we give into their training. And then mask confidential information, like if there are any customer references, we'll mask that before we put it into any public AI tools, right? And then implement data classification and then access control. So there are some confidential information, like when you are building a RAG system, you make it as a rule based, for example. So certain HR related documents can be accessed only by managers, for example. So you add a role to your RAG connections so that if you're a manager, then only you can access certain set of data, otherwise you're not. So this is another aspect. And then bias and ethics is a huge thing when you are building a public facing chat GPTs or generative AI solutions. So usually biases are built mainly because of the input data. If your input data is biased, then usually the output also will be biased. For one good example everybody gives is about Amazon. Amazon was processing resumes through the generative AI, right? Generative AI solution. So, and then they saw that all women or female resumes were getting rejected because uh, the 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 data that was trained on were all male resumes. So this is one good example where the generative AI or the LLM models can bias output based on the trained data. So what we do is when we are building any business applications, we identify the general biases that system can give, and then we create testing data in terms of this is the data that I am giving, which the or the prompt that I am giving, and what is the kind of output that I am getting. So I'll have expected output. If I'm not getting the expected output, then it is doing some bias. So then I'll go and fix the training data or input data, right? So hope I'm making sense, because these are the important aspects of building or using generative AI into business, because without these aspects, if you build it, then you'll uh, get into trouble or get into problems. So one of the recent MIT report, which was published around 1 month ago, which actually crashed all the stocks, right? So what they said is 93% of the AI projects or generative AI projects are failure. uh, Businesses are regretting their decisions. And the reasons are simply they have not taken care of all these aspects. So it is important to take care of all these aspects while building these applications. And then explainability and trust is another aspect. So LLMs are black boxes. So even Anthropic or Gemini or anybody who is building LLM are still learning in terms of how LLM actually works, how it creates annotation, how it uh, uh, creates content based on the training data. They are trying to draw those lines so that they understand it better. So as they are understanding, it is a black box for us. So LLMs are black box. And then so how do you trust this, right? So there is something called explainable AI. So this is kind of nowadays when you do a chat, it actually, or if you have used Perplexity, for example, it explains what it is doing, right? Where it is pulling the data, and then it is also it also provides the source citation. So if I have pulled certain particular data out or created a particular content, it tells you from where I have got the data. So that is the reason, that is the core principle of Perplexity, why it is getting popular. So it has got citations, it explains what it is doing, and then it is it gives more confidence when you are using Perplexity for certain aspects, right? And then integration and cost. So LLMs are super costly, right? So we have seen the costing model. If we are using the models, the cloud-based models, when we're talking about tokens, so we have seen pages of response that it gives. Once it gives the one page response, it corresponds to so many tokens, right? So and then corresponding cost is included. So that is one way of using generative AI or LLM models. Use cloud hosted models. And then the other other aspect is you download those models and run your own systems. For that, you need GPUs. Like if you're using large language models, you need GPUs, and GPUs are super costly. So, and then the usual business problem is they don't assess all these things. They just want to build certain solutions using generative AI, and then they go ahead and build it. And then when people start using, the token count increases, the usage increases, and then the cost on the infrastructure or the cost on the licensing will increase. And then they will be in a fixed situation where they cannot roll back that particular feature which is giving value to their customers. So these are some of the pitfalls that businesses are getting into. So it is important to measure return on investment on any Gen AI usage, because Gen AI is not the ultimate solution to solve all the business problems. It's not a silver bullet. So it can do certain things in a better way. So if that is related to your business and then you are making money out of it, either as a new offering or through an operational efficiency or improving the productivity of your people, which has more value than what you could spend on, then it is the right tool to use, right? And then compliance and governance is another aspect where it is evolving. Like, yeah, EU is the first one to come up with AI Act, which defines how to use AI, how to use responsible AI, your compliance related to General Data Protection Act, and then HIPAA specific to healthcare data. So how do you manage your personally identifiable data? There are some guidelines, right? So based on those guidelines, you need to build your LLM solutions or generative AI solutions, which takes care of these things. So one of the things that we have done is, before we build any generative AI, we build framework, a responsible AI framework, and then observability. Observability is mainly you log everything, right? So this is the input that is given, this is the output generative AI has given, and then you do regular audit in terms of whether it is giving out any personal information or people giving personal information in their input. How are we receiving it? How are we considering it? So these are some of the aspects that everybody should consider while building solutions around generative AI. Okay. And this is just a framework that this is specific to our company, where we have created a responsible AI framework. So in every stage, we'll do a check on the ESSR. ESSR mainly ethics, safety, security, and regulation. So while doing the thinking in terms of whether we need to build a solution using generative AI or not, while defining the requirements, creating a roadmap, we'll do ESSR assessment. And then if it passes through, then we'll go to the next step. And then uh, choosing a model is also an important, which covers the ESSR aspects. And then model training. So when we are doing the model training, we will consider these aspects in terms of what are the data that we are feeding into our model, and then whether it has got biases, it has got ethics considered, safety aspects considered, and things like that. And then once we build our solutions, we validate it against ESSR. And then when we say we validate it against ESSR, it is mainly we create multiple test cases, test scenarios, and then we test those tests and test scenarios on these applications against the expected output. So if expected output is something different, which is not ethical or which compromises on safety, then we will go back and retrain the data, or we'll trace back in terms of what data is causing this, and then rebuild the data. And these are important aspects when we are building business applications, because your reputation at risk, your customer data is at risk, and then your you can financially go down if anything of this sort is compromised. All right. So any questions? No questions. All right. So we'll talk about business cases. So we talked about NLP, right? NLP, NLU, natural language understanding and generation. So these are some of the business cases. I've taken it from the industry and will, if time permits, I'll talk through some of the implementations that we have done internally in our projects, right? So Morgan Stanley, you might have heard the name. So they use OpenAI's GPT-4 for their help with the financial advisors, right? So uh, basically, so it summarizes client portfolio for them. So when we talk about client portfolio will have many data points in terms of when they have invested on certain stocks or uh, certain tools, and then how they have made money, and then what is their investment pattern, and then uh, they will also get recommendations from the market in terms of what is happening, and then create a specific investment recommendations to their client. So this is one implementation. So this is one implementation, and Coca-Cola uses ChatGPT to generate creative campaign ideas and then marketing copy. So this is widely published. There is a big article on this Coca-Cola case study where it is using ChatGPT for creating the campaigns. And Duolingo is a platform where you can learn any language. So it is using ChatGPT 4 or GPT-4 for personalizing conversation tutoring in this app. So, and then we talked about text summarization. So you're sitting on large amount of text and then or data. So how do you extract insights and things like that? So understanding EY uses generative AIs to summarize the audit findings and financial reports, because EY works on they create they are hired to assess our financial data and then generate reports, right? So it takes uh, weeks together to analyze the financial data and then generate reports. So understanding uses that to summarize the data, and they have their own checks and balances in place to ensure that whatever data that comes out is a valid one. And Thomson Reuters also integrates GenAI on the precision and then the summarization of legal case documents. So uh, it is widely used in legal scenarios. So there are situations where some lawyers have used ChatGPT and then they have created citations. So when they present their case, right? So they have to give citations in terms of this particular ruling was there in particular date passed by a particular judge and things like that. So ChatGPT, what it did is it actually created its own citation, which was not real. So there are situations like that, but Thomson Reuters might have done their own checks and balances to address those aspects, and then uh, supporting in creation of the legal cases. Pfizer is a big drug manufacturing company, and then they so ChatGPT or LLMs are heavily used in drug discovery, right? So it is drug discovery is understanding different drug patterns or different components together and building a new drug, right? So it is helping the drug manufacturing or drug discovery for particular diseases faster using Gen AI or LLMs. Pfizer is one among them, but there are many drug companies which are using LLMs for the drug discovery and also understanding regulatory compliances against a particular drug. And then it is helping the drug development team basically. And then code generation and optimization is another aspect where GitHub Copilot is the front runner in terms of the code generation. There are many code generation tools that are available. Anthropic has got its own, Claude Code has got one, Code Whisperer is from Amazon, but GitHub Copilot is widely used. About 1.8 million developers are using GitHub Copilot. So, and then GitHub Copilot or any code generation tools, what in my experience or in the experience across our organizations is we are not using Copilot for generation of the code from scratch, or we are not building complete product or complete solution using Copilots as of yet, but it is getting better and better. And then there was a concept called wipe coding, right? So, and then it created certain roles called wipe coding fixers, right? So why, when you create a wipe code, it does not, it creates complete code, then does not consider certain aspects. So there is, and you don't know how it has created, where it has taken the data. So there was a role that was actually wasn't famous in terms of wipe code fixers, right? So you create a code and then you get into a problem that wipe code fixer comes in and fixes the code. But yeah, that is a different context. But coming back to this particular context, it is widely used in terms of understanding a code. Like you are asked to fix a class file which is about 1,000 lines of code. So, and there is no documentation of the code. Then how do you understand it? How do you fix it? So then you can use Copilots to understand the complete code. It can explain you the code, and then specific question in terms of I'm trying to fix this particular problem. Give me some suggestions or where I should go and fix it. So it is doing a great job in that particular case. And then legacy transformation. JP Morgan Chase is one good example where they have migrated legacy COBOL code to Java uh, for their core banking application. So it is like we are doing another migration. It is Micro Focus is the technology. From Micro Focus, we are converting that to .NET. We are using GitHub Copilot to do that. And ServiceNow is another good example where it is generating scripts, right? So where uh, you want to create infrastructure as a code script or monitoring scripts, and then create workflows, then you can use ServiceNow's AI capability to generate those scripts. All right. So image and video is a common use case you might have seen experimented. IKEA is heavily using it. I don't know how many of you have visited IKEA website. If not, please go and visit it. So the most of the rooms that are depicted in the product images are generated from AI. So their online catalogs, the physical setup of the room, uh, where they place their products, the plates, for example, the tables or the stools that they sell, the background is completely generated by generative AI. And then Warner Brothers is using it for localizing trailers. So they create a trailer and then try to localize it with particular theme for a particular country, and then creation of promotion clips for global markets. They are using it. Adobe Firefly, uh, Adobe, Photoshop is the Adobe's core product. Firefly is an AI extension to help create background extensions, right? So this is where it is used. On the conversation agents and copilots, this is another big use case where we are building a lot of copilots or the uh, chatbots using generative AI. So the earlier chatbots had limited correspondence in terms of, like, I ask a question, if it finds a question, then it will answer me the answer it. Otherwise it will say I don't know, or I could not find that information, ask a different question, or it gives options, right? So with generative AI capability, it can understand the context and understand what question he may be asking, and then it can come back and suggest, are you implying this, right? So, and then it responds back, and then if I say yes, then it will go and fetch the particular data and give it back to me. So this is, and then Copilot, you have seen me using GitHub or sorry, the Microsoft 365 Copilot in Word. Similarly, you can use it in Excel, Outlook. I can go to Excel and then select a particular data and say, create a chart for me, or analyze this data and tell me what is wrong. So all those things can be done using Copilot. And then I talked about the conversation AI, rebooking travel. So you don't have to click through, select different places, but you can use chatbot kind of a interface, say that I want to go from here to here, and then find a flight for me, right? So, and then these are my financial constraints, and then based on that, it will generate results for you. And then you can converse as you're conversing with an agent, right? And then data insights analytics, we talked about some use cases where we talk to charts and things like that. So these are some of the implementations where Walmart has implemented to analyze their customer feedback and predict purchasing trends. Salesforce Einstein is another model where they're using to summarize insights from CRM data. Citibank is using it for investment summaries, risk insights in a particular portfolio. Right. So quick time check. So we have got another 10 minutes. So another aspect is process automation. So you might have heard about AI agents, right? So AI agents is basically what it can do autonomous job, right? So you give instructions. So based on it uses ChatGPT as a core or LLM as a core to make that decision. And then once the decision is made, it runs through some processes in terms of whether I have taken a right decision or not, and then initiates a particular task. So you might have seen in the OpenAI conferences, if you are trying to book a table for two, right? So when you are trying to book a table for two, have a conversation, understand your needs, kind of what is your food preferences, and then the agents will go and search particular restaurants in that particular area. Like if you are looking for Chinese, to look for Chinese restaurant nearby, and that is an agent which goes and checks uh, uh, the Google Maps, for example, to find out different restaurants nearby, and then probably it will go to Yelp, and Yelp is a rating platform where they rate different establishments. So it will go to Yelp and find out which is the top rated one, and then find out which is the most suitable hotel for you, and then it will call the hotel's API or the booking API to book a seat for you, right? So this is process automation, then the orchestration that is being implemented using generative AI. So generative AI is at the heart of the system, and then but it is calling different agents to do different tasks. So these are some of the examples where uh, Zurich Insurance is one thing where it is summarizing claim data. So they receive hundreds of claims every day, and reading through those claims, putting it into the system takes good amount of time, because some of them are handwritten where it requires OCR, some are them are fed into the system, and then usually it is textual in nature in terms of what is the disease that particular patient is having, what are the kind of treatments that they are giving, and then it has to take those treatments, convert that into something called medical codes, and then analyze that whether it is considered in his insurance or not. So these are some of the aspects uh, where generative AI is used, and then the processes are automated. And then reasoning and decision support is also where it is generative AI is becoming more uh, intelligent with more data that is added, and then the more dimensions that it can create. It can create a good context and then take decisions based on the data that it is been fed with. And Siemens Energy is one where it is using generative AI to recommend maintenance actions. Uh, so Siemens Energy is a energy company, and then they work on bigger turbines or bigger machineries, which requires regular maintenance. And if you don't maintain it regularly, then can go bad, right? And that is one part of the maintenance. Another part of the maintenance is you have used that machine for 10 years, for example, and there are few parts which can go wrong. Uh, so based on the previous data in terms of same machinery being used or the industry data in terms of how long that machinery can work, it predicts when you need a maintenance for that particular machine. So Siemens is using it heavily on that. And then Deloitte is using it to support their consultants in their analysis. And then GE Healthcare is using it for radiologists. So this is more of an image processing where it is taking the imaging data and generating the report, right? And this is not just, it's not like it is trained on one or two images. They have trained it on millions and billions of images and then match with corresponding reports. So what they do is they will upload the image, upload the report, let LLM learn based on the image and then the uh, corresponding text, and then it creates kind of an embedding, and then it uses that particular data to diagnose uh, whatever whatever the cause could be from the imaging that it receives. Okay. All right. I think we are at the top of the hour. So there are few use cases. I'll probably end with this. So this is how we develop any business applications, right? So we ideate first and then create a proof of value and then productionize it. So uh, for any generative AI use case, the generative AI end-to-end governance is an important aspect which runs throughout the life cycle. And then the ideation is based on business value that it is creating, right? So the one thing that we always keep in mind is technology is just a facilitator. Technology, uh, business, uh, business problems are unique, and then technology is just a facilitator. We need to identify whether generative AI or LLM is the right technology to solve a particular problem. That we need to establish first, and then identify whether it's a new opportunity or are we improving a particular service, and then define use cases, and then technology selection. So we looked at different models that are available based on the need, based on the industry. We choose a particular model, and also in terms of how much I can spend in terms of return on investment, whether I need to go and use a large language model which supports 16,000 dimensions, or I'm good with probably 368 mini language model for my needs. So those are some of the decisions that we'll make. And then we create a minimal viable product. And then that minimal viable product are put into testing. So we demo that to different users to see what is the impact that it is causing on certain set of users. And then based on that, we'll learn, we enhance that particular model or change technology as needed. And then we identify whether that's the right model. And based on the usage, we also understand the cost implications. We understand the risks, ESSR we talked about. So those are some of the things that we'll assess it here, and then we put into production. So uh, once it goes to production, we need to maintain it in terms of logs, observability, and then scale solution to new businesses. So there may be 100 users that may be using our system today, but down the line after 6 months, 1 year, there may be 1,000 users, they may come into our system. So are we building it for scale? Are we supporting the scale? And when the scale increases, is the technology still valid? And then based on that, we take different decisions. So this is an overview in terms of how we build generative AI applications for business. So there are few use cases more, but I'll stop at this, and then I'll share some of this data in terms of prompt engineering that we talked about.
Okay.
And then one good suggestion, like what I have seen, is encourage your students to use Copilots, ChatGPTs, but when they are using it, ask them not to use it to get just the answers. Say, for example, you are asking for an answer. This is okay to ask for an answer, but you need to ask ChatGPT, like, how did you get to that answer? What are the different alternative answers that it has got? And then how did you determine a particular answer? So then what ChatGPT does is it will run through the process in terms of what are the analysis that I have done, why I'm saying that particular answer is a particular answer, right? And then you can ask your students to use ChatGPT to master a specific topic. So you may be able to cover a specific topic to a limited context or limited extent with the time available, but students can go and explore those topics, and then everybody has got their own specific skills, right? And some people can grasp it very easily. Some people need more context or more examples. Those are some of the prompts that they can try to understand a particular concept with example. How did you arrive at the concept? What is the history behind that particular concept? And then tips to memorize this particular concept. So all those things, ChatGPT does a wonderful job, or any Copilot, Grok, or Gemini, or whatever they use. Try to uh, help your students to try on these aspects where they can get better results. Okay. All right. We'll probably end this session now. In the next session, we'll talk about Gen AI in IT services. Let me see if there are any questions.
Yes, participants can post any queries to the chat box.
I'll again use ChatGPT to answer your questions. I'm just kidding. Hope the concepts were kind of clear. You understand the
Yes, it was
context.
definitely,
Yeah.
it was really insightful. Participant can post queries in the chat box. Okay, we can have a break for a few minutes and we'll come back exactly at 7:35. Will it be okay, sir? Girish, sir?
Yeah. Let's join back at 7:40 if that is possible.
Yeah. Not an issue.
Yeah, 7:40. Let's
Okay,
give everybody
okay.
10 minutes. We'll join back at 7:40.
Yes. So those
Thank you.
participants are posting their queries kindly.
Yeah, I'll respond to this chat. In the meanwhile, we can take a break and come back at 7:40.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you.
ಲಿಂಕ್ ಹಾಕ್ತೀನಿ session. ಇದನ್ನೆಲ್ಲ ಹಾಕಿಟ್ಟವನಪ್ಪ ಫೀಡ್ಬ್ಯಾಕ್ ಲಿಂಕ್ ನಾನು ಗ್ರೂಪಲ್ಲಿ ಹಾಕಿದೀನಿ ಲಿಂಕ್ ಬಂತಲ್ವಾ ಗ್ರೂಪಲ್ಲಿ ಲಿಂಕ್ ಬಂದಿದೆ ನೋಡಿ ಯಾ ತಗೋತೀನಿ
Hey everybody, welcome back. Anita, we can start the next session whenever you're ready.
Yes, we can start with the next session. Dear participants, session has started. Yes, you can share the screens.
All right. All right. So in this session, we'll talk about uh, how IT industry or IT services organization who are developing products, developing IT solutions for
Yes,
different organizations. Hello, am I audible?
yes, it's audible. You can continue.
All right. How generative AI is used in the IT industry, and then how it is enabling organizations, IT industries to improve on the productivity and then uh, consolidate certain roles which may not be needed now, right? So this is what we'll cover in this particular session, and also it will give you an idea in terms of uh, what is the IT industry is moving towards, and then who are engineers coming out of the college, what are they should be equipped with, right? And then you can probably guide accordingly to your students. So when we talk about IT industry, we talk much about right, software development life cycle, and then this is the industry data in terms of the growth in terms of AI tools, development tools like GitHub Copilot, Cursor is getting famous, and then Cloud Code is another one, Windsurf is another one, and there are many open source alternatives that are being launched every week, every month, and there is a good adoption rate, like 180% is a very good growth, and developers usually latch on to these tools, try to find out which is their favorable tools and then start using those tools, and that adoption, 72% adoption, is a super number in terms of any tool adoption. And then with our experience with the data that is collected across our organizations, about we are a 25,000 people organization, out of which at least 18,000 are developers. And then we collected, and out of 18,000, there are about 30% of the developers who are using these co-pilots and tools like that for different customer implementations. Based on the data that is collected, we are seeing 8 to 13% of productivity gain by using these tools. When we talk about productivity gain, so either we are doing more job for our customers or we are losing out on 10 to 15% of the uh, job requirements. And then another aspect is if we don't use these tools properly, we'll get into troubles. It can impact negatively for the organization. There are chances that you are taking the open left license code and putting it into an enterprise applications, which can create problems in terms of the copyright and things like that. So, and also you can, if you use or depend on Copilot completely, you may end up uh, creating a code or inculcating a code which you don't understand, and then fixing takes longer time. So these are some of the drawbacks also, or negative effects which impacts delivery performance, security, vulnerability. Like if you don't scan your code, you take the code from Copilot, include it as part of the delivery, put it into production, it can open up some security loops, right? So these are some of the challenges. We just have to be aware of it. And then when we talk about development lifecycle, either whatever model that you use, whether you use waterfall or agile model of delivery or scrum based or Kanban based delivery, these are some of the typical activities that you do. You analyze the problem, design solution, develop the code, integrate it to the verification, and then take it to deployment. And once your deployment is done, you take it to operations. And then throughout the life cycle, there is a team collaboration and assistance that goes on a day-to-day basis, right? So this is a common aspect in any software development life cycle. We'll go into each of these sections and see where uh, generative AI is being used, right? Or AI in general is used. So one of the first aspect is the analysis, right? So you got certain requirement from user, you need to analyze it, right? And then analyze and create documentation. So the more document that you create, it is more helpful for design and development, because here you'll have mostly the business analyst or the product owners involved who understand different market needs and then create requirements for you. And for the market analysis also, they may be using this OpenAI or any generative AI platforms to do market research. Say, for example, I am implementing a particular feature. I need to understand whether that feature is actually good in terms of the user adoptability, or will the user like it, or whether my competitors are using that particular feature, or will it become a differentiator for my particular product. For those market analysis, uh, the product owners or the business analysts are using those specific tools. And once you have the requirements, to detail out the requirement, they're using Copilots uh, or uh, or generative AI to do that. And once you have the story created, you can generate user stories out of it. And then another aspect is you can include your knowledge base also, right? For example, you're adding one feature for a particular product, right? And then that product has got many other features. You need to understand the impact, right? In terms of, like, I add a particular feature, what are the different areas that it gets impacted? So you can build your co-pilots in such a way that it can look at the product documentation, and then you input that I am trying to implement that particular feature. What are the areas that it will get impacted? So it will come back and give you details in terms of these are the areas that it gets impacted, these are the code that gets impacted, and things like that. So I'll quickly run through a demo in terms of how GPTs are helping. So here I have created one product owner agent. So I'll show how it looks first. Hope my screen is visible, the Copilot that I'm sharing. So this is the product owner agent that I have created. I have given some description for that particular agent and then given specific instructions. So what is the purpose of this particular agent? And then the general guidelines in terms of provide clear, concise responses, use simple language, maintain supportive, encouraging kind of a tone, and then leverage web resources as necessary. And then I've created certain skills for this particular agent, saying that you have to assist enhancing a particular epic, for example. And then as a product owner, given a product feature, generate detailed backlog of user stories. And when it creates user stories, I've given it a particular format in terms of how it should generate user stories, and then improve an epic. And then I've given good enough details in terms of what are the things that it needs to do, who are its stakeholders, identifying it, out of scope context it needs to give me. So this is the agent that I have created. Now I'll use this agent to enhance a particular user story. For example, this is one user story, which is one liner, right? Here, if you see, sorry, this is a bigger one. Let me try this one. So this is one single liner. So I want to implement geofencing for a particular mobile application. It's called S-Access mobile application. And this mobile application is used by facility vendors where when they come into a particular facility, then that particular mobile application gets enabled. So this is what feature I want to implement. I have not given any context here. The context is in the agent. So now I'll say generate, enhance this particular epic. So if you look at this, so it has created the objective with one-liner statement. It has created the objective for this particular requirement, and then it covered the in-scope aspects. It covered the out-of-scope aspects, and then it covered the key features. The key features are GPS-based location checking and dynamic geofence configuration per facility, because this is super important, because you need to identify a location. So if a vendor is visiting multiple hospitals, hospital geolocation needs to be stored so that it can calculate geofence uh, in terms of how far I am with that facility. When I am near that facility, then only this application should work. And then out of bound attempts. So this, I did not give any of these details, but it generated this. So this is how product owners or the business analysts are using these agents and then enhancing a particular story. Think of a product owner or a business analyst thinking through all these things and writing it. It would have taken about 4 to 6 hours for any experienced business analyst, and then they need to probably refer to different materials to understand what is geofencing means, or what are the things that I need to consider, what are the things that I need to put it as out of scope. So this is saving a lot of time for the product owners and then the uh, business analyst. So, and also it is giving an implementation plan also. So these are some of the things that I've added as part of the skills for that particular agent, and it is using it to a full extent. So now I have enhanced one-liner requirement into a beautiful epic. Now I want to create user stories on top of this, right? So I'll say create user stories for this requirement. So now it uses the format that I had given, and then format, and then user story has got a specific format, right? In terms of description, it has to have a clear acceptance criteria. Uh, so based on whatever skill that I have provided, it created user stories. So this also would have taken another 3-4 hours or 10 hours based on the number of user stories that they need to create. So there are, it itself is identifying different actors also, like it is identified, I'm a vendor. As a vendor, what I need to do. As a administrator, what I need to do. So it is taking different context and creating these user stories, right? So you can see the kind of productivity improvement and also the kind of context, and then you can enhance your agent in such a way that it can refer to a particular compliance requirement. For example, I'm building an application for hospitals or healthcare, then it has to, or my requirement or my feature should have those compliance things taken care of. So I can give those skills to that particular agent, which can understand the GDPR compliance, HIPAA compliance, for example, if I'm processing card and card security requirements. So all those can be fed as skills to these agents, which can generate a more powerful user story, more powerful epic or requirements for you. And this can be part of your Atlassian. When we talk about Atlassian, most commonly used tools are uh, Jira. So Jira is used to track stories and then progress on a particular sprint or whatever agile process that they follow. So they can use, and then Azure DevOps ADO is another tool that they use, and these can be integrated as part of these tools. I'll in the next few slides, I'll show how we have implemented or how we have integrated that process into Jira itself. Okay, next comes the UX design, and then the most commonly used tool is Figma in the industry, and Lovable is getting popular nowadays. And then for UX design and prototyping, it is like you can write your prompts, or you can give your user stories, or give your UX user experience requirements and ask Copilot or generative AI to generate sample prototypes for you, right? So it can generate compelling prototypes, and then you can give references also, right? So if you're building a certain particular feature which competitor has got, and if you have certain screenshots of that in terms of how they have implemented, you can provide that screenshot and then provide screenshot of your application, and then you can give a prompt in such a way that it understands the competitor, how he has implemented a particular feature, how your application's user interface or user experience look like. It can combine those two and provide you a better prototype. So the which is look and feel like prototype, and also you can create certain block diagrams where you are at the conceptual stage where you want to visually explain certain concept or certain product idea to your stakeholders. You can use these tools to quickly develop those prototypes or walkthroughs using these tools. And then the architectural documentation generation from the existing code, like you can from the existing code, you can use copilots to understand the architecture, and then also you can give inputs, prompts, saying that I want to develop this kind of an application, and these are the business requirements. These are the non-functional requirements. Given an optimal architecture document for me, right? So, or you can upload the requirement document completely and then ask for architecture document, given some inputs in terms of what technology that you want to use, what are the considerations that you need to make. It can give you at least a draft, and then you can build on top of it. Uh, and then system design and data model design is another aspect where it takes good amount of time to understand the requirements and put it into a data model. Like if you are using a traditional database, relational database, it takes good amount of time, right? So that is where uh, these tools are like generative AI being used, where you provide the requirements and then it will give you a data model for you, which may be 30% right or 90% right? So even if it is 30% right, it is the saved time for you. So, and then the bigger impact that generative AI is doing is on the development, right? So we talked about it briefly in terms of the code generation. So it can generate code, right? So you give the requirement saying that I want to create a function which does certain logic, right? So you can give those aspects like I want to create an API which takes two inputs and then it runs through certain logic or refer to certain table in the database and then pull data, do some calculations, and then generate results. So it can create that API for you. And then you can give instruction in terms of what are the libraries that you need to use or your preferred libraries. If you don't provide your preferred libraries, it will try to find a best match for that particular requirement and try to use that library and generate code for you. So that has been used, but in a practical scenarios, we are not using code generation part for end-to-end product development. We are using it to generate certain functions which can save certain time, right? And then majorly it has been used to troubleshoot. So for example, in most of the cases, what we do is we inherit code from different teams, right? So there is always a churn of team, the new team members comes in, and it takes good amount of time to understand a particular code. And then and you're asked to fix a particular code. And then you can use these copilots to troubleshoot a particular problem. So uh, in our existing one of the customer implementation, we are working with a product which is database heavy in terms of they have written a lot of business logic in the stored procedures, and one stored procedure is about 4,000 lines of code. And then there are multiple stored procedures with thousands of lines of code. To understand that particular 1,000 lines of code, it takes good amount of time, right? So you can chat with that particular code and ask questions, specific questions in terms of, this is the problem that I'm getting, where could be the problem? So it can suggest, and then once it suggests, you can say, how do I fix it? So it will give you some suggestions based on your understanding, your experience. You can either take it or give more prompts to enhance that particular suggestions, or you can take that as an input and then fix by yourself, right? And then we talked about one use case where they've migrated legacy COBOL code to Java using generative AI. That is a common use case. Code refactoring is a common use case, and code documentation, another big use case where when we incorporate code, usually it is not documented. You don't know what that function does, what that particular class does, uh, how one function is related to another. Those are some of the documentations that you can create, code comments that you can create. And the most uh, simple thing or most harmless thing that you can do with the code is like you can blindfoldedly you can do the unit test generation. So when we have to write unit test for each function, if the requirement is to do 100% code coverage, then it takes good amount of time to generate unit test. So unit test generation, it does an amazing job in terms of unit test generation. So it takes mock framework. If it is mock framework is required to mock specific objects to create your unit test, it can do that. And also in most cases, static code analysis. Also, we are using co-pilots. Like there are specific tools in the market, like Sonar Cube is one of the tool, but Copilot also has got specific features which it can do some static code analysis. So I can give prompts to assess a particular code against performance, uh, and then it can give suggestions back in terms of how I can improve that particular code, or if there are any security risks, I can ask questions. So uh, we'll, I'll give you a small demo in terms of how to use Copilot in the later sections. And then integration and verification we talked about in terms of compliance verification. So if I have an IPA standard, or if I'm building an application to collect credit card information, so there are guidelines in terms of I should not be storing credit cards as is. I need to encrypt it. I should not be saving CVVs. And then uh, uh, the password should be one-way hash. So there are many such requirements, right? So, uh, and then we can test all these things using copilots. And then we can generate test cases, right? So I've created a user story, right? So for that particular user story, if I want to create test cases, I can enhance that. I can give a prompt saying that generate test cases for this particular user story. And then I can give a prompt saying that cover the edge case scenarios, cover the negative scenarios. So it can generate a lot of test cases. So what is happening is the regular manual testers who are only doing the testing activity, their roles are diminishing. Now, the business analysts who will review the test cases are able to generate test cases for a particular requirement. So, uh, if you are not into automation, if you're doing only manual testing, then your job is at stake with these kind of tools that are in place. And test automation also, it can do test automation to certain aspects. So if you are using BDD framework for testing, then it can create your Gherkin language, Gherkin script for you to do certain automations. And these are some of the tools that it can integrate with. TestRail is one, Playwright is another one, open text testing suites we can integrate with. And then on the deployment side, like nowadays, the manual deployments, we are reducing about 98% of whatever we develop, we deploy through CI/CD pipelines. We write infrastructure as a code for provisioning infrastructure. With cloud infrastructure, it is easy to write scripts which will provision the infrastructures. And then there are different languages that you can use to create those scripts, right? And then using generative AI, you can create those scripts. Say, for example, I want to create an EC2 instance with a specific configuration, specific network considerations. Uh, so I can give those inputs, and then it can generate infrastructure as a code in whatever format that I want. Uh, and then it can give it to me. So I can use it as part of the CI/CD process to provision infrastructure, right? And then CI/CD artifacts, right? So when the build process and then the deployment process can also be automated. Like when you say build process, there are different steps, right? You pull the code from the repository, and then you build the code using certain application servers or certain libraries. And then once you build it, you verify it, you test it. If there is a test automation, then you execute test automation. If test automation is passed, then somebody approves it, you automatically push that code to UAT. And then if UAT is passed, push that to production. So all these things are scripted within Jenkins or ADO or any other tools. So those scripts can be generated using generative AI. And then release notes generation is another aspect. Like if you are releasing a particular feature to that particular product, you need to develop that release notes so that the infrastructure team knows about it, and also your external audience, who is the product users, also knows about in terms of what are the features that have come in. So it can generate release notes specific to a particular audience. And when it comes to operations, once you take any product to production, operation becomes a major aspect in terms of observability. The application may be generating tons of logs, right? And then it is important to monitor these logs and then identify challenges, alert users so that there is less impact or no impact to the end user. So generative AI can analyze these logs and then create those alerts. And then it can analyze software logs to understand the behavior. We can look at the incident resolution, right? So for example, I got a ticket uh, that the support team got a ticket saying that some particular feature is not working. What generative AI can do is it can look at the ticket logs, previous ticket logs, to see if there were similar tickets, similar tickets, and see what was the resolution for it. And the generative AI can give that resolution to the support desk, and they can see it and then try to apply the same thing, right? So that is where generative AI is helping. And tech debt management is another aspect. Like once you develop a code, put to production, uh, it ages by years to come, right? So, and then you need to manage the tech debt and then resolve it. So that is where generative AI is used. Well, these are some of the use cases across different stages of SDLC. Uh, Team collaboration is the core, and then assistance. So that is where Microsoft 365, Teams, and then Atlassian's Jira, for example, are being used. For example, you conduct a meeting, you have a daily stand-up meeting, you have a review meeting, you have uh, different product demo meetings. So all those meetings can be recorded, it can summarize, and then it can generate action notes for you, which saves a lot of time for team collaborations and team management, right? And then Microsoft 365 Copilot can be used, which can link to your SharePoint or anywhere the location where the documents are stored. Um, so this is the overall view in terms of where generative AI is used across different life cycles, right? So, and you might have observed, like in each stage, generative AI can be used. What it does from a IT services or a business impact is it saves time, right? It maybe 10% of the time or 20%, 30% of certain roles, but at least it saves about 10% of time, right? So 10% of time saved is 10% of productivity gain. So either you have features to develop for 10% or you only have certain features. So if there is a team of 10 people and then producing certain amount of work, 9 people can uh, produce the same amount of work. So there is a possibility for the IT organization to reduce that 10% of the workforce if the product features that they need to be delivered is fixed, or else they can take additional product features and then use 10 people to deliver 11 people of work or 12 people of work. So this is where there is a shift happening in terms of some organizations are consolidating certain roles. I talked about manual testing, right, as one role. So if business analysts can create manual test cases and then co-pilots can automatically generate test automations, you don't need a tester. Your developers can generate those test uh, automation, right? So these are some of the roles that it is reducing. And if on the UX designer, like if somebody is taking 3-4 days to create a prototype, I can develop it within a 1 day, right? So a lot of time is saved. And then the CI/CD engineer or the DevOps engineers, uh, like you don't need 10 DevOps engineer to maintain 10 different products. 1 or 2 DevOps engineers should be able to maintain 10 different products. So this is the shift that is happening. Uh, and then this is where it's impacting IT jobs, right? So one suggestion or anybody who is getting into IT is to understand these aspects and then be smart in terms of I will use these tools, I'll be more productive. If somebody is doing or delivering 10 story points per sprint without using tools, I can deliver 15 story points by using these tools, right? So that should be the attitude which can win over different people who are not using generative AI in their STLs. Okay. And then as we have looked upon and then we have looked at the different aspects of business application development using generative AI, similar rules, similar cautions apply to development also. That is where we bring in a concept called human in the loop, who always validate, decide, prioritize in terms of whatever data that you get, right? For example, if you are in the planning or design or if we are creating user stories, it is validated, signed off. If you are having a code, if you have created a code, you can use Copilot to do a fast code review. Like usually we call it peer review or pull request. So whenever somebody develops a code, it has to go through at least 2 pull requests. So what we do is one senior developer within the team will do a first code review and then the architect will do a code review before we push anything to production or to the main branch. So, and with generative AI, it can do 1 round of code review. So your time to do the first review is reduced, but we will always insist on one manual review before the code get merged, and also use of certain tools, right? So for example, Sonar Cube. So whatever is generated through Copilot or human generated code, it has to go through Sonar Cube so that we push secure code to the production. So we always will have human in the loop, but their involvement, time they spend on validation uh, is reduced, and also they spend more time on validation than producing certain outputs, right? So this is a practical approach I just wanted to share, because you should not be under assumption that I can develop everything without any interventions. So this is a practical scenario where every IT industry or any product development is happening. All right. And then I'll quickly run through about operation workflow also. SDLC is about developing a product and then productionizing it and then maintaining it. Operation has got different aspects, like it could be 24/7, it could be application operations, it could be IT operations where people are looking at infrastructure, alerts, monitoring different systems, and then their incidents gets reported, alerts gets triggered, log anomaly gets detected. So these are some of the use cases where generative AI is helping in ticket triage, in creating a knowledge base. Uh, for example, here in the IT industry, the churn is very high in terms of people replacing people, right? So, and then time to proficiency takes good amount of time. So generative AI can help in reducing that time to proficiency. Like if somebody comes to the team, if they need 1 month to get proficient to address particular help desk or support a particular product, they can be proficient in 1 week with generative AI tools available, the chat interface available where they can look at the previous ticket and things like that. All right. So any questions so far? All right. So this is one thing that I was talking about here. If you see, so I just gave you an example of using Microsoft 365 Copilot. Similar thing we have done with Jira also. So Jira, you can manage your stories, epics, and features, right? So this is one example where it is where I have one-liner requirements, right? And then these are some of the agents or the plugins that we have developed for Jira. On click of this improve epic, it opens up a window where it will take the input as the one-liner requirement, and also it takes context in terms of what feature this epic belongs to, and then what are the product features. All those context it will take and enhance this epic for me. And then once it is enhanced, this epic is enhanced, I can, if I'm not satisfied, I can give more context here and then click on enhance. It will enhance it further, right? And then I can do it repeatedly if need be. In most of the cases, the first output, because we are already giving the context, the first output is always, in most cases, 80% time it is right. And then you can click on save. And once the epic is generated, then we saw this generate user stories. So I can click on generate user stories, and this generates uh, a set of user stories, which has got details. I can click on this drop down, look at that user story, and there could be multiple user stories that I may not want. I can select and delete it and then enhance a particular user story or all the user stories and then save. So what it does is it is automatically updating my Jira in terms of the epic, it is creating user stories. It is also like we have built in a capability where it assigns story points also. Like it will calculate story points based on the previous data or based on its intelligence, at least at the basic level. And then when we go for a story planning, then we'll see whether that is still applicable. We may need to make changes and things like that. So this is how we are integrating the requirements part uh, in the SDLC. And design-led, we talked about user-centric design, iterative incremental design. We usually use builder.io, Figma. Figma is most commonly used in the organizations, and then it has got AI capabilities now, which makes the designers more productive and then generate outputs very quickly. Lovable is another aspect. So for visual design, Lovables is used mostly. And then we talked about this. I'll quickly go through the code maintenance and legacy. So this is a screenshot from GitHub Copilot. So when you open a particular project, these are some of the options that you will get in terms of search, start debugging, explain a particular code, fix a particular code. If you are creating a new component, you can say /new and then give a prompt. It will develop that particular new function or new class that you want to create. And tests, you can create tests here and you can explain a particular code. Uh, it gives a detailed natural language explanation of your code. These are some of the activities that you can do. I'll quickly open. This is the GitHub Copilot that is integrated as part of the Visual Studio code that I have got. This is some open source project that I have got. And this Visual Studio code, I'm using the trial version. I don't have the licensed version on this particular computer, but this is what it does, right? So here, what I asked is, explain this project architecture. So it gone through all the code and explain me the this particular application's architecture here, right? So this is one use case. And then say, for example, this particular function, I want to analyze this function. I can select this function and say Copilot editor inline chat. So I can ask add, or I can use this, or I can just say add comments to this function. And I can use different models here. So this provides different models based on the license that I get access to more models. So there's a tough competition between Claude and then GPT-4, 4.1. In most of the cases, Claude is getting better nowadays, and then there are different other Anthropic Claude models or models are there, which provides specific. The Claude Sonnet is specific for coding, so it provides more accurate answers. So what it does is, see, you can see that it is adding comment to this particular function. So what it does is it understands the particular function in terms of what are the input parameters, and then what is it trying to do. Like it is attempting to parse the data URI and extract the binary data and media, right? So this is what it is doing. So it gives a summary, tells what are the different parameters that it needs to pass, and then it also gives details in terms of what does that parameter also need to do, and then what does it return, right? So it would have taken good amount of time to document this. So see, we always tell our developers to write comment before you write a code, right? So but some developers' mentality is write the code first and then add comments later. So this is where it can help and also explain this particular code. So now it has explained the code. It has given the input for me. Either I can accept it or leave it like that. Once if I accept, then it will go and modify the code for me, right? So that is one requirement. And another thing I can ask is how can I improve this code for performance. So it generated another code for me for improving the performance. Or I can ask question in terms of, is there a performance bottleneck? So since I've taken the open source code, it might not have anything, but no results found, right? It said no refinement is required. So this is how developers are using it on a day-to-day basis. And then, as I told, if the class file is large enough, you don't understand it, you can use that. You can ask question, a generic question. You can add context in terms of like you have a coding standard, for example. You can add that as a context. So and then ask Copilot to comply to that particular coding standard. And then whatever code that it generates will always be comply with that particular coding standard. And then as I told, there are different models that you can use based on what type of code. Some models are good in Java, some models are good in Microsoft technology. So based on what suits better, you can use different models. Yeah, I'm just giving you an overview, but what I would suggest is if you have Visual Studio Code, uh, try to download the trial version of Copilot and then play around it. I'll encourage your students also to do it uh, so that they understand the concept behind these Copilots and then how it can help improve the code. Like let them download an open source project library onto their local and then try out modifying it. So all those things can be done. But we will not suggest using trial version for the enterprise applications or the applications that we are developing for our customers, because whatever input that we develop or whatever input that we give or the output that it develops is used for training purpose. So we don't want to expose our proprietary code to GPTs and things like that. All right. So Amazon Q is another example. GitHub Copilot, Amazon Q, Cloud Code, uh, and there are multiple nowadays. But GitHub Copilot is most commonly used. And then we talked about uh, uh, test case generation. From stories, you can generate test cases, and from test cases, you can generate the scripts also, test scripts, which can be used into your coding. Like if you have a BDD framework, if it uses Gherkin language, it can read through your test cases and then generate a Gherkin code or a step function for you, which can be used as part of your code. And then the infra provisioning, I briefly talked about it in terms of where you can use. So in the CI/CD, we can use it for inline suggestion or fix errors. And excuse me. So generating from prompt, like you can generate the complete CI/CD script from prompt. And also if you're incorporating somebody else CI/CD processes, then you can understand these pipelines better. And then infrastructure as a code, we talked about it, code scaffolding, commenting. So you can generate infrastructure as a code. And then you can also give prompts in such a way that you generate infrastructure which is scalable, which is optimized. These are your requirements, and based on that requirement, it can suggest in terms of what is the kind of infrastructure you need, and then corresponding infrastructure code is generated for you. Release automation we talked about in terms of summarizing the changes, creating release notes. Monitoring is another aspect where your system is generating a lot of logs, and then GPT can make sense of those logs and then create specific alerts. Troubleshooting, uh, we talked about suggestion of script fixes. So it could be an infrastructure fix or finding out a root cause, right? So for example, when the system crashes or it creates a lot of logs, it could be system logs, it could be application logs. You can use GPTs to analyze these logs, and this it is a tedious process to go through these logs, and then you have to collect logs from different locations and then put it into one format or some tools to analyze it, make sense of it, and then GPT can do a better job in doing all these things. And then document creation. So you can create run books. So when you're doing the operation or infrastructure operations, you need to create run books, standard operating procedures, uh, and then it can enhance based on the feedback that you get, right? So you create, there are some certain tickets that come in, and then you provide resolution, right? So, and then GPT can look at your resolutions and then relate to a particular problem. And if that problem is frequently occurring, then it becomes a standard operating procedure, and then which can be handed over to the service desk people who knows that if a particular problem comes, this is the solution, right? Okay, release note generation, we talked about it in terms of how, what are the tools that it uses, and then generate release notes. And once the release notes are generated, so release note could be product release notes, or it could be an internal release note, or release note to the infrastructure team, right? So based on whom you want to send the release note, it can collect the information, and also it can generate a content which is suitable to that audience. For example, if you're developing a release note on a particular product feature release to end user, it should talk about the features, right? And then what is the kind of advantage that as a user they get. So it is a separate format. Like if you are creating a release note for the infrastructure team, it has to tell what are the application changes that you are making, what are the infrastructure components that it is impacting, what is the kind of additional load that may be required. So that kind of details are created for the infrastructure team. So it can identify the personas, and then based on the persona, it can generate release notes for you. Incident resolution, we briefly talked about it in terms of taking inputs from different sources and then identifying similar ticket algorithm. There is yes, no connector. We can use different connectors to connect to different data sources. So ServiceNow connector, this is SNow is ServiceNow connector. So it can look at different sources and then gather data from different sources and then generate kind of a incident resolution for you, right? So hope these concepts are clear. Uh, now so here also, like when we are using generative AI in IT services, we also need to understand the risks and how to use it responsibly. These are core concepts that any organization has to follow if they want to use it effectively without compromising on customer IPs, customer assets, or customer reputation in the market, right? Customer IP exposure is the major risk when you are using these kind of co-pilots. So always avoid using trial versions, use proprietary code licensed versions, and then code quality. Code quality we need to always make sure that we check the code quality, like whatever, it may sound good, but it may not be logically correct. We have seen many scenarios of this. So it is always like whatever code that Copilots give you, always validate it, review it, use other review tools like SonarQube, or use peer reviews to make sure that you're not pushing some junk or a, a logical into the production. Security, sometimes AI might suggest insecure code patterns, and this was happening most frequently at the earlier stages where we were using different LLMs, but LLMs are getting better, and there are coding specific LLMs that are being created. Claude Sonnet, which I talked about, is more advanced, designed for coding. So it takes care of security aspect, takes care of performance aspects, but it is still learning, right? So we just have to make sure that even though these LLMs are improving, we need to do our job in terms of validating it, making sure that we are pushing right code to production. Bias and hallucination also happens in the code, mainly because of the trained data, right? So if you have trained the model with bad code, then it will produce a bad code. Gold in, gold out, garbage in, garbage out, right? And then licensing and attributing is another aspect, which is a big aspect when you are developing software products. We need to make sure that it is not taking somebody's rights, right? So there are different types of licenses like Apache, open source licenses, MIT licenses, and then there are certain open left licenses also, which have a restrictions in terms of I cannot use that particular code, even though the code is available on GitHub or any repository. I cannot use that for a commercial purpose. If I use that particular open source, I should develop only open source, and I should make my application also public. So these are some of the restrictions. Some have restrictions in terms of I have to take permission before using those codes. Those are some of the aspects that we need to be aware as developers or the code generators, so that when the code is generated from OpenAI, we understand those aspects and run through certain tools. There are many tools in the industry that uh, checks these codes and compares it with open source libraries to see whether there is any license violation. All right. These are some of the best practices. Treat AI as assistant, not as an author. Always review, test, validate, use enterprise tools only, and then foster prompt sharing culture. So this is super important, mainly because you are as productive as your prompts are, right? And then you you uh, you learn the skill of good prompting by iteratively trying different prompts, and then looking at the results, and then you improve the prompt. So once you improve the prompt, you have a strong prompt that you can use for specific use cases. For example, troubleshooting a problem, performance issue, I have a super prompt. Then it is better to share that across your team members so that they also gain from it. So this is not only applicable for the developer community, it is applicable for any community where prompt sharing help improve as a team. And then create AI usage playbooks per customer engagement. So uh, it, because we are bound by our own contracts with our customers. So some customers don't want any code generated from GPTs. They strictly say it, and some have healthcare particular customers ensure that whatever code that we generate is following the HIPAA standards, right? And then the GDPR standards. So those are some of the customer specific requirements that we need to capture and then drive our team in terms of how do they use AI in their day-to-day work? What are the big no's? What are the acceptable uh, recommendations or acceptable things that they can do, right? So that is all I had on the AI in software development lifecycle or AI in IT services. If there are any questions, I can take that up.
Any queries from the participants? If any queries, please put it in the chat box. There is one query.
Yes. So, yeah, definitely. You can use Copilot to detect misconfigurations or security vulnerabilities. So, we have been using this uh, in the infrastructure as a code, like generate infrastructure as a code for us, and then we can run through Copilots to see if there are any vulnerabilities. Uh, Claude Sonnet does an amazing job in terms of understanding the infrastructure code and then suggesting if there are any vulnerabilities.
Participants, if any queries, you can put it in the chat box.
Okay. All right, then hope these two sessions are helpful, give you some perspective in terms of how generative AI is actually used in business scenarios and in the IT services, and then probably take this learning and then devise your curriculums or devise your instructions to your students so that they are well prepared in terms of the real-time scenarios. Yeah, so one another question is the integration of AI-based monitoring. Uh, See, Prometheus and Datadog are the common tools. Datadog is getting popular, and Datadog also provides AI capabilities. Now, Datadog has got, I forgot the name, it is called um some feature which provides AI capabilities. So, uh, Datadog itself was analyzing the data and providing you some dashboards. On top of it, it provides AI capability where you can export a particular dashboard into a most NLP, natural language kind of a report, or generate emails based on the alert. So there are multiple AI capabilities that are added as part of the Datadog itself. And as you know, Prometheus and Datadog can look at multiple logs and then generate report. And then the logs can be used with the AI capabilities of these tools to do amazing things. And also Datadog provides APIs, so you can tap onto those APIs, get the data, and then write your own generative AI use cases. Yeah, so environment specific deployment, it will understand the context. Given you have to give your prompts in such a way that you're deploying it to a cloud environment, right? So for example, I'm deploying this to AWS environment, and that I want to use cloud native services. For example, I want to use I give more context in terms of this is the performance that I want to achieve, or these are the kind of performance requirements, or this is the kind of application, these are the number of users, and this is the cloud services that I want to use. Based on that, it understands the context and then generate scripts for you from an infrastructure code standpoint.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much, sir. Okay,
Okay.
participants.
All right. Yeah. Thank you all
Okay,
for
let's
your
wind
time
up.
then. Yeah.
Sir,
Yeah. Thank you all for the
thank
for your time, and
Thank you
thanks
for
Anita for
sharing.
the opportunity.
Yes, yeah, we had really a great time. And sir has detailed more on how LLMs work, tokenization, embedding, transformers, prediction. And sir has also given more than 500 plus models. And one such real-time LLM model that can be currently used as neatly elaborated, and how prompting all LLM can be done, GenAI capabilities, business aspects, limitations and mitigations of GenAI. So, and what are all the responsibilities of AI framework with respect to the business context? And also, sir has given a very good knowledge on GenAI in IT services, and with respect to AI that can be throughout applied with respect to software development life cycle in every stages like analysis, design, development, integration, verification, development, and operations. Thank you, sir. Thanks for for sharing your valuable time. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity, and thank you all for the time. Best wishes. Bye.
Thank you. Yeah, okay, let's wind up today's session. Thank you. Dear participants, please fill the feedback form. Session 1 and session 2 of day 4.